Well, good morning. You're in tune to 88.5 FM. I'm David Baker, and this is our feature we're calling Juneteenth 2012. We came to you last week. Our friend Shirlene Martin was here to talk about Juneteenth, and this week we've got two more people who are in the know, and they know what's going on for Juneteenth this year, and it's Virgil Mayberry and Vesey. They're here. They're part of the Juneteenth Planning Commission. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Dave, for having us again.
And I appreciate your efforts in getting to the studio. As anybody who knows in the Quad Cities, now Shirlene and I also talked about this last week, it's been difficult to make our trek in the Quad Cities and especially around the St. Ambrose campus.
It's quite a maze, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But Juneteenth is coming up. It's not going to be any effort to get down there because that part of River Drive is nice and clear. June 23rd, not this Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday. Yes. And so tell us in a nutshell, Betty, what's in store for Juneteenth? And then we're going to get to Virgil and talk about some other things.
You know, every year it just amazes me at how much more we add to this event and a lot of the things that are happening. And this year, it is definitely a family-oriented event. You have to bring your children there. They've got a great lineup. I know they have these huge puppets, and they're going to be putting on a puppet play. There's storytelling. There's also the petting zoo, which is always a huge hit with the family members as well. So we're going to have that at the Juneteenth as well. The entertainment is lined up as well. We've got gospel artists that's going to be coming. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on. We have smooth groove, and that's one of the things we wanted to do this year was to focus on Quad City talent. And if you're a fan of Smooth Groove, you know what they're all about. So it's going to be really huge and exciting. Next
week, we hope to bring a couple of the members of Smooth Groove here, possibly Tyrone Phillips and Ruben Sierra from the band. And maybe we can play some of their music, too, to whet your appetite and get you ready. And we've got the blues down there. I know last night we do blues shows here on the station, and the disc jockey last night, Steve Pedigo, was telling the audience about Hal Reed and Ellis Kell are going to be up there. And that is a treat just to check those
really
guys
is.
out.
And I love looking at the audience when they're out performing. They're getting in there, they're patting their feet, having a good time. I just love watching them perform and then the crowd's reaction to it. So make sure you come on down next Saturday, June 23rd.
And it's the best thing is the price is absolutely free.
Free.
Except for the food and the things that go with the food, the drinks, and that they are charged for those.
Bring some spending money.
Right. And there's a small fee for the petting zoo. But when you go to the other festivals, you know, you have to pay for admittance and then buy your food and other things. So this one, we wanted to make sure that it was family friendly.
Virgil Mayberry, I know I contacted you way back in the wintertime, and I asked you, I told you all about what's going on for Juneteenth, and I said, they might need a little help this year. Would you like to come on board? And you said, yeah, I'll do that. When's the next meeting? And there you were. And we developed an idea about that time of doing a history tent because we want some meat to the Juneteenth event. We don't want it to just be, they got some food vendors and there's an entertainer on the stage. But what are they there for?
Right. I mean, and even the Juneteenth event itself is a historical event. So what you guys came up with just fantastic for it.
Tell us quickly, and there might be someone who has not heard what Juneteenth is. Could you, in a couple of sentences, tell people what Juneteenth itself is?
Okay,
Virgil?
Juneteenth celebration is after the Civil War, there were slaves still being held in captivity in Galveston, Texas, and other parts of Texas that did not know they had been freed. The slave owners knew that they'd been freed, but if you can get somebody to work for you for nothing, you're money ahead, and that's what slavery is, work without pay. The Union soldiers came through Galveston, and they told these people, you have been emancipated, you are free. That was June the 19th, 1865. Those people were so happy in that they started celebrating. That spread across the nation because other parts of the United States knew about it. But when they found out there were people being held in captivity basically for almost a year, they started having celebrations throughout the South. And, you know, technology isn't then what it is today. So that's the Juneteenth celebration, celebrating that the last people in America had finally been freed.
And
Go. Okay, we're talking about this before the show even started. That the planning. This will be our 4th year at LeClaire Park. But Virgil, you were saying the planning for this happened years ago as well.
Yes, approximately 25, 30 years ago, Dr. Ida Johnson now, Nate Lawrence, Bonnie Beecham, myself, and some other people, we knew that these celebrations were going on throughout the United States, but there had never been one here. So we planned one here in the Quad Cities back at that time when United Neighbors was on 8th and Gaines Street. So we planned it then, and we planned for it to continue and continue, which it is now, and it's getting bigger and better. Hopefully this year will be the very best, and we're planning on the committee we have continuing all through the year rather than waiting a few months before it's time to go, because we see that to do all the things we want to do, you just can't do it in a couple months prior.
Well, the idea of having a history tent came up, and then you were kind of recruited for that part, Virgil, and so that kind of took on a life of its own this year, and it's still a work in progress because we're not exactly sure of every single feature that's going to be there, but we're sure of some things that are going to be there.
Right. We're going to have a history tent, as David said, and it's going to be a tent. And what we would like for the community to do is to come out, whether you've been here 50 years or your family's been here since the 108th U.S. Colored Troops were here, come out and share your history with us, who your family was when they came here. We are planning on videotaping this at the history tent. We're going to exchange ideas. We're also going to have artifacts there from time past showing, for instance, what a slave basket was. It wasn't a basket. It was a 10-foot long piece of burlap that you carried this in. We're going to have quilts there. We're going to have fun.
Okay, so, and that's part of Juneteenth. So you're going to get some education that day too. But it's a lot of fun to learn about these things, and we're going to talk about a really cool piece of memorabilia here in a moment. But Betty.
Well, along with that, you're going to have a couple of guests that hopefully will make it there.
Right.
Like the oldest man in the United
US.
States, or is he the third oldest in the United States, or
He's
in the
the
country?
oldest man
Okay.
in the whole United States.
Shelby Harris.
Yes. 111 years
And
old.
he lives right here in the Quad Cities.
Rock
Right.
Island, yes.
Must be
He
something
does.
good in our water, huh? Maybe. I guess so.
And actually, we do have this is the first for the Juneteenth, a king and the queen, and Shelby is our king for the Juneteenth.
Oh, well, congratulations
for,
to him. Okay.
For this year. So, and find out, you're going to be surprised. You can find out who the queen's going to be for the
Oh.
Juneteenth as well.
You're smiling. Is it you?
No, I'm
Maybe.
just a diva. I'm not.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But with the history tent, Virgil, you've got some fantastic display set up
Yes.
for it.
Yeah.
At approximately 1 o'clock, and whenever you have something, a festival like this, the time varies a
Right.
little bit. We have a complete program, which someone asked me about last night, which I didn't have one. I said, well, you've got to come down there. You should be there. It starts at approximately 10 o'clock, the Unity March. But at approximately 1 o'clock, I will be doing a presentation on Dred Scott.
Okay.
That will last approximately an hour and 15 minutes. That Dred Scott decision, some people feel, precipitated the Civil War. Dred Scott walked the streets here, breathed the air that we're breathing. If that hadn't happened, who knows what the United States would be today. But we will have questions and answers. And if any of you out there know something about Dred Scott that perhaps I or some of our committee don't know, we would love for you to come and share that with us also.
And Dred Scott, of course, lived in Bettendorf, Iowa, where the I-74 bridge is, where the
Memorial Park is.
Memorial Park. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. John Emerson, who brought him here from Missouri, he was a slave in Missouri, but this was free territory. He brought him here as a servant. Well, at that time, you could homestead land, okay, because Dred Scott could not read or write and didn't know, that much about it. Dr. Emerson, who was military surgeon, he wasn't a family practitioner here in the area, he went and claimed 640 acres of land in Bettendorf, and Dred Scott built the log cabin, lived there, and did that, provided that for Dr. Emerson.
That's a huge piece of history
It
right
really
here.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've studied it, the footnotes that they had in the history books while we were in school. But just listening to you the last couple of weeks, I was just amazed about the new things that I didn't know about him. So even if you think you know, I can guarantee if you come down this next Saturday, you're going to learn something new about Dred Scott. And also, the museum is going to be there as well.
Hopefully, we will have some stuff from the Cedar Rapids Museum. They're not going to be there, but they're supposed to bring some history, some artifacts for us to set up there also. Inside the history tent also, this isn't just about the older generation people. Our younger people that are graduating from high school, going to college, graduating from college, going into private industry or whatever, we would like to film them also and talk to them. And this filming might be, say, approximately 2 minutes per person. So 20, 30, 50 years from now, they can go back and tell their children or grandchildren, at LeClaire Park in 2012, I said I was going to be a doctor, and I'm a doctor getting ready to retire today, and have that to show. We need to keep this history. It is vital to the whole community.
You know, there's something to be said about artifacts, and it's fun to collect and look at these things. We all know that. But there's something very tangible about, you brought along today a copy of a newspaper from 1857
Yes.
for us to look at. And it's a wonder that the paper is still still together. And it's a paper discussing the Dred Scott decision and what happened with it. It's interesting to note that someone at some point in 1857 probably picked that paper up and held it with their hands, read it, had some comprehension of the information in there, and looked through the pictures, and they got a story out of that piece of artifact, just like any of the other artifacts that we're going to have on display down there. There's really something to be said about somebody at some other time took that object for another purpose, and today we're going to take it for a different purpose completely. So I think there's something really important about that.
Yes. With the history, I hope people have heard about or seen Deb Morgan has made a quilt, which was on exhibit at the Moline Library. She's going to have her quilt there. I have some quilts, some Black History quilts. Some other ladies do also. It's going to be a fun day, and if you have anything that pertains to Black history here locally, especially, that's what we're keying in on, bring it down and share it with us, because it's out there.
And the stories of the quilt making, that is just phenomenal when you hear that it was also used as message or secret meeting places for them to gather as well. So not only are the quilts just beautiful and handmade,
Right.
but also the history that's involved in making of the quilts.
On Interstate 80 at the rest area, coming east between Iowa City and the Quad Cities, they have murals up there of, I think it's like 12 to 15 of these quilts, and it denotes what every quilt stood for as far as the abolitionist movement. These quilts stood for something, and I've stopped by there various times and looked at it and took pictures of it. But if you want to know about these quilts during slavery, it's on the other side of Walcott, and it's in the eastbound lane coming back. It's on the wall. It's there permanent at that rest area, and that piece of history has to do with the Underground Railroad, and that, I mean, is fabulous if you like that type of history.
He's just a wealth of information.
Yeah. We've got Virgil Mayberry and Betty Vesey here on KALA, and we're talking about Juneteenth that's happening June 23rd at LeClaire Park in Davenport. I'm David Baker, and we're going to be here for the next 15 minutes or so talking about this great event in our community. And then next week also at 11:30 on a Friday morning, the day before Juneteenth. So tell me a little bit about the significance of this event. One of the things that I find significant about Juneteenth, the way it's grown, is that it is the only African American celebration here in our Quad Cities that is on a larger